Hey YouTube fan, it's me, your boy Russ. It's time to make some content. Let's go. So anyways, I wanted to do a YouTube channel for maybe 10 years. And of course I didn't because it seems like such a waste of time and a lot of work. And I didn't really know what to talk about, or I thought that everything that I knew already was already out in the world. But it's pretty clear that that's really not the case, and everyone has a unique perspective and set of information. So I've decided to start making these videos, as many as I possibly can, about whatever the fuck I want. And eventually the goal is to be able to create high quality videos that are actually informative and interesting and will help me crystallize the knowledge that I have been learning, exploring, etc. Because the best way to learn something is actually to teach it. So I want to have this little outlet to be able to teach you, my viewer, whoever the fuck you all are, like why you're even watching this video, you should switch and go to something more clickbaity. I want to be able to teach you things that I think are important and helpful into becoming like a happier, healthier, more productive person. And so a lot of things I'm going to talk about are mental health, sleep, productivity, scheduling, organization, learning. Really, meta learning and metacognition are two of the things that are the most important to me. So here's where we're going to start. I'm just vamping, and I'm going to tell you a few things that I think are particularly interesting. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, it's actually going to be a thing called ego depletion. And so this was the first video I wanted to make. And there's a side story about how this goes, and it's like, it's not really relevant for right now, but let me tell you about this concept called ego depletion. So I believe it was a psychologist named Baumeister who ran these studies originally. This was maybe mid 80s or so. His studies involved bringing people into a room, and in that room there were two bowls, one with radishes and the other with cookies. And like this whole office, this lab smells like cookies, smells like delicious food, etc., etc. And so he'd bring them into this office. There are three groups to control with nothing in front of them at all. One group with both the radishes and the cookies in front of them, who were allowed to eat the cookies but not the radishes. And a third group that was allowed to eat the radishes but not the cookies. And so they would put them in this room and kind of be like, okay, you can eat the radishes, not the cookies, etc., etc. And then the experiment would leave and make it very easy for them to break the rules. They'd leave for a while and give them a chance to really get in there and fuck around, right? And this was intentionally. This was by design. They would give you an opportunity to break the rules. And so after that, they would, come back after a few minutes and bring the participant, the subject, into another room where they would give them a test. And they would have to try to solve the test. Now, the very silly thing here is that the test that they were trying to solve was actually impossible. Cruel, I know psychologists can be cruel. And so they would try to solve this impossible test. I think it was like making it like a Hamiltonian path across an odd shape where every vertex had three edges. So if you understood that, cool, good for you. We'll be talking about math at some point in the future. But if you didn't, it was an impossible problem. And they measured how long people would keep trying to solve this impossible problem. And so for those who did not have a radish or cookie or anything, the control group, they worked for about 20 minutes, I would say, and maybe tried, 30 plus attempts at solving this impossible problem before they gave up. The people who ate the cookies but not the radishes tried for, let's say, 18 minutes. And the ones who ate the radishes but had to have the self-control to not eat the cookies, even though the entire place smelled like delicious baked cookies, fresh baked cookies, only tried for 8 minutes before they completely gave up. And so this was kind of reproduced in one or two ways and became, part of the meta. And the idea here was that if you have to use self-control to stop yourself from doing an activity that you want to, you kind of take away from this innate resource that allows you to keep working on difficult problems, allows you to persevere, allows you to keep trying over and over again. And so the thought was, because they had to withhold themselves from eating the cookie, they wouldn't be able to work on this problem as long as long as those who did. So this is the theory, and it was generally accepted for late 80s, early 90s, and at some point they wrote a book about this called Willpower. And the concept comes with the name ego depletion, that there is this limited resource, this ego, that is depleted throughout the day by all the decisions and restraints and kind of things that you have to do. And from this idea comes a lot of like weird behaviors that we see like our, psychotic billionaires and or like, overly optimized people doing. One of those, which, I think President Obama used to do, and Steve Jobs and other people who I don't want to talk about, they would wear the same clothes every single day, thereby taking out that element of making decisions, which I kind of agree with and would do myself. So I actually, have a uniform and thought that would be really easy. And at some point in my life, I decided I would eat the same food every single day. And these ideas of taking all this effort and energy out of the deliberation of choosing what to wear or what to eat left more time to do productive work, do things that were important to me, make decisions with, like a critical like effort and intelligence that I now had a little bit more willpower to do. Here's the problem. Here's the fucking twist. This study is actually false. It's mostly debunked at this point. In fact, they did a number of like meta studies and realized that there was publication bias in being able to kind of create these studies. First of all, there was a small sample size in many of them, and many of the other studies which had a small sample size were rejected from publication because they showed an opposite result, which was not part of, was not in the canon. So they were not published. And that led to a kind of skewing of the results towards a belief in this idea. So the current kind of state of the world is that actually your willpower is infinite. Your ego does not get depleted, but it will get depleted if you believe it is finite. So there's like kind of a little placebo meta effect here. If you think that you are losing this kind of like, innate level of self-control and ability to make decisions, then you actually will lose it, which is kind of wild. So I would say here's the primary advice that comes out of this. One is understand that the decisions you make are independent, are alone, are dependent only upon like you and your energy at that moment, and making many decisions doesn't lead to a decision fatigue or ego depletion, but is part of how you get better and how you practice and how you learn from these things. So I'm going to stop there. My next videos will be about decision journals, probably also about Dunning-Kruger, a really interesting psychological effect that has something, is in the similar vein. And I hope you stick around, and really no one's ever going to watch this. And the whole point of this is for me to get better on camera and more comfortable speaking, etc., etc., etc. Great. Thanks, everyone, and take care.